Before we get started, I'd like to welcome Jason Howard to lead us in our invocation. And Jason is from Stone Creek Church here in Milton.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. If we could bow our heads. And we go before our Father tonight on a beautiful evening where we're reminded of your glory and just the peace that comes. Father, I pray that tonight we have strength and we also have your guidance as the council makes decisions that continue to help grow this city. God, we also just thank you for the opportunity to be able to celebrate what makes our community great. As students gather together and people come before this council, we pray that the council members and the support of the staff, the city, the fire, law enforcement, everyone that's here tonight gathers under your authority to make the best decisions possible in the most humane and also the most caring and compassionate manner. God, we pray for Mayor Lockwood, Councilwoman Thurman, Councilman Hewitt, Longoria, Kuntz, Lusk, and Morg, that you grant them confidence in what they do, a keen thirst for your justice, your rightness, and the ability to work together in harmony, even when there is honest disagreement. And God, we thank you for the many blessings and the ways in which you protect and you govern and help us make City of Milton the best city in Georgia. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much. I'd like to recognize Congresswoman Karen Handels here tonight, too. So thank you for being here. All right. Okay, I'd like to call the regular meeting for Milton City Council meeting for Monday, October 16th, 2017 to order. Sudi, if you'll please call roll and make any general announcements.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'll be happy to call roll for the October 16th, 2017 regular meeting. I would like to remind those in attendance to please silence all cell phones at this time. Those attending the meeting who would like to provide public comment, either during the public hearing or during the call for public comment, you are required to complete a public comment card prior to speaking on the item. There is no public comment for consent agenda items or items under first presentation. Those called to speak will be taken in the order that the speaker cards are received by the city clerk prior to the beginning of tonight's meeting. All speakers will identify themselves by name, address, and organization, if applicable. The City Council may allow public comment on either an agenda item or general public comment from a representative of such an organized group or association, provided that the individual has filed a notarized affidavit with the city clerk that they have the authority to speak on behalf of that organization prior to the agenda item being called. Demonstration of any sort within the chamber is prohibited, so please refrain from any applause, cheering, booing, outbursts, or dialogue with any person speaking. Anyone in violation will be asked to leave. As I call roll this evening, please confirm your attendance. Mayor Joe Lockwood.
Here.
Councilmember Karen Thurman. Councilmember Matt Kuntz. Councilmember Bill Lusk.
Here.
Councilmember Joe Longoria.
Here.
Councilmember Rick Morick.
Here.
And this evening, Councilmember Burt Hewitt is absent for the record. Would everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Again, I want to welcome everybody here tonight. We are glad you're here. And Sudi, if you'll please call the next item, approval of the agenda.
Our next item is the approval of the meeting agenda. Agenda item number 17258.
Okay. I would like to add an executive session to discuss land acquisition. Is there anything else on the agenda that staff or council would like to do? If not, I'll open up for a motion.
Mayor, I move to approve the meeting agenda with the addition of an executive session to discuss land acquisition.
Second.
Okay. I have a motion from Councilmember Longoria, and I believe Councilmember Thurman got the second on that. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. Okay. Next item is public comment. Public comment is a time for citizens to share information with the mayor and city council and to provide input and opinions on any matter that is not scheduled for its own public hearing during today's meeting. There's no discussion on items on the consent agenda or first presentation from the public or from council. Each citizen who chooses to participate in public comment must complete a comment card and submit it to the city clerk. Please remember this is not a time to engage the mayor or members of City Council in a conversation. When your name is called, please come forward and speak into the microphone stating your name and address for the record. And you'll have 5 minutes for remarks. Sudi, do we have any general public comment?
Yes, sir, we do have two, and the first comes from Congressman Karen Handel.
Thank you very much, and good evening, Mayor Lockwood, and to the council members. I wanted to just stop by. I am now just over 3 months in office, and while I've talked with any number of you on multiple occasions, I did want to be on the record to council and to the people of the city of Milton that the offices are open, and I'm working very hard to represent the interests of the city. I want to introduce Ashley Jenkins, who is the district director for all of you here in the 6th District. So let us know what we can do to be helpful, and know that I stand ready to be your partners on whatever issues would come before you. And before I wrap up, let me give a shout out to the ladies from Cambridge FFA. What a great achievement. So congratulations to all of you. And thank you, and call on me when I can be of help. I look forward to working with you and serving each of you and serving all the citizens of the 6th. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Congresswoman. We appreciate your support of our city. Okay, Sudi, if you'd please call the next item. Next speaker.
Our next speaker is Mr. Tim Becker.
Tim Becker, 15625 Canterbury Chase, Milton, Georgia. Good evening, Council. Tonight, I want to talk about protecting the integrity of the democratic process in Milton. There were 2 incidents in the past week that I want to address, both involving the same candidate. The first incident that I wanted to talk about is that last night, dozens of illegal campaign signs were posted on thoroughfares leading into Crabapple. These signs were put out in the dead of night, and as we know, today was the start of early voting. I did ask the candidate today, I happened to run into him, about why this occurred, and I got a junior high answer, which I will not talk about. We're going to take the high road. We're not going to take down the signs. We're not going to put up our own illegal signs. We will report any violations to the city, and more importantly, we are going to highly publicize the lack of ethics involved in the placement of these signs. And we're going to make sure that the people of Six Hills and Kensington Farms know that the front of their subdivisions were abrogated by a candidate for office. The second issue that I want to discuss, and this is a more important issue, is the fact that the same candidate has been using emails that have been solicited by the city and then provided to a tax-exempt organization. These emails were used for political purposes, to invite people to events. This is a serious issue. This is a big problem for the city. These emails were solicited through the city. The city has an obligation. If citizens interact with the city, they have an obligation to protect personal information of citizens. So what I believe, there's only one solution to this problem. And that solution is that everybody that was emailed needs to get an email from the city. And this email basically needs to apologize to citizens for the misuse of their personal information. The city needs to commit to this not happening again, and needs to tell citizens how the city is going to safeguard their personal information in the future. And lastly, the city needs to reassess its relationship with 501c3 organizations if we're going to have this sort of issue. And I believe this 501c3 also needs to examine its own policies with regards to personal information. I believe that this violation is serious enough where the candidate involved needs to withdraw from the race, but I doubt that he will do that. So in closing, I want to say that 23 months ago, as you know, I got involved in city government, and I got involved because I saw bad behavior occurring in the city. I got involved because I saw what I thought was corruption in the city. And I saw what some of you can't or won't see. So I'm not surprised by the behavior in both of these incidents, for they are par for the course. But I'm going to tell you this. Citizens are going to take back this city. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there any more public comment, Sudi?
That's all, sir.
Okay, we'll move on to our consent agenda. If you'll please read the items.
First item is approval of the October 2nd, 2017 regular city council meeting minutes. Agenda item number 17259. Next is approval of revisions to the supplemental pay for sworn police and certified fire personnel receiving college credit towards degrees. Agenda item number 17260. Third, approval of a deposit account agreement between the City of Milton, Georgia, and the Bancorp Bank for the production and administration of payment for flexible spending account cards. Agenda item number 17261. Next is approval of ratification of a mediation agreement and ratification of the city manager executing same in the case of Fulton County, Georgia versus Drive Time Car Sales Company, LLC, et al., civil action file number 2017CV290578. Agenda item number 17262. Our fifth consent agenda item is approval of the agreement for vehicle maintenance and light repairs between the City of Milton and Extra Mile Auto Tire and Service, LLC. Agenda item number 17263. Next is approval of the agreement for vehicle maintenance and light repairs between the City of Milton and Express Oil Change, LLC. Agenda item number 17264. Our seventh and final consent agenda item this evening is approval of a work order addendum to the Master Services Agreement between the City of Milton and VC3 Inc., providing for the lease of Maintenance 2, Mobile Data Terminals. Agenda item number 17265.
Mayor, I'll move to approve the consent agenda as prepared by staff.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion from Councilmember Luss, second from Councilmember Kuntz for approval. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous, Sudi. Okay, we'll move on to reports and presentations. Sudi, if you'll please call the first item.
Our first item this evening is a proclamation recognizing Breast Cancer Awareness Month. This is being presented by Council Members Longoria, Morick, and Thurman.
Thank you. It is my honor to present this proclamation along with Joe Longoria and Rick Morrig, recognizing October as Breast Cancer Awareness Month in the City of Milton. I also want to thank our firefighters who have been wearing pink all month this month and to recognize Breast Cancer Proclamation. As many of you know, this is very personal for me. I was one of the lucky ones. I have been cancer-free for 3 years as of October 1st. 1 in 8 women will get breast cancer at some point in their life. 1 in 3 women will get some type of cancer, and 43% of all men will develop some type of cancer. Great strides continue to be made in both the early detection and treatment for all cancers. Breast cancer doesn't just affect an individual. It affects a family, as I'm sure my husband, Mark, Rick Morgan, and Joe Longoria can attest to. In 2017 alone, there will be an estimated 252,710 new cases of invasive breast cancer, and another 63,410 will be diagnosed with non-invasive breast cancer. It is estimated that there will be 40,610 breast cancer deaths in 2017. Fortunately, death rates have been decreasing since 1989. The decreases are due to treatment, advanced early detection, and increased awareness. Less than 15% of women who are diagnosed have a family member with a history of breast cancer, and only 5 to 10% of breast cancers can be linked to an inherited gene mutation. For me personally, the greatest challenge has been the incorrect assumption that once the surgery and radiation were completed, life would be back to normal. I have come to realize that once you have a cancer diagnosis, you have a new normal. The physical scars from the surgery and radiation will always be present. There will be side effects from the medication required to ensure the reoccurrence doesn't happen. You will forever fear the cancer returning. There are also positive things that come out of every difficult situation. When diagnosed with cancer or any other disease, you learn that you are not in control. You learn you have to trust God with the outcome, whatever it might be. You realize how very important your family is to you. They will always be there for you. And you learn who your true friends are, friends that you can trust and depend on, and ones that will pray for you and your family. Many communities do not have the resources within their community to treat breast cancer. We are very fortunate that we have 2 facilities, Northside Hospital of Alpharetta, which is where I was treated, and Wellstar North Fulton Hospital, which has a new breast cancer specialty teams and treatment clinic. The purpose of this proclamation is to continue to bring awareness to the need for early detection and for the continued research in the treatment of breast cancer. And I also want to thank Frida Hardage from Northside for coming, and Sarah Bentley from Wellstar North Fulton. So thank you all for coming. Whereas October is National Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and
Whereas breast cancer is the second most common cancer among women after skin cancer, and
whereas 1 in 8 women will be diagnosed with breast cancer at some point in their life, and
whereas over 246,600 new cases of invasive breast cancer will be diagnosed in 2017, and about 40,000 women will die from the disease, and
whereas in 2017 there are more than 2.8 million women with a history of breast cancer in the United States. This includes women currently being treated and women who have finished treatment, and
whereas every woman is at risk for breast cancer, even if she has no family history or other risk factors of the disease, and
whereas the efforts of various organizations have made regular contributions to spreading breast cancer awareness through outreach, education, and screening programs, and have empowered women with the life-saving message of early detection and the importance of having annual mammograms.
Now, therefore, we, the mayor and the city council of the city of Milton, Georgia, hereby dedicate and proclaim October as National Breast Cancer Awareness Month in the city of Milton, and call this observance to the attention of all of our citizens.
Given under my hand and seal of the city of Milton, Georgia, on the 16th day of October 2017. Mayor Joe Lockwood.
I would like for our firefighters and also anyone who has a direct family member that has is a breast cancer survivor or has lost a family member to breast cancer to please come forward so that we can do a picture.
It's an honor to be part of this proclamation tonight.
So will you take your microphones and push them down for me real quick? Step backwards toward the end, just a little bit. There you go. That's good. Okay. So we can see. Will you come right in front of, right there? You step over just a little bit, and then will you, let's see, Frida. Will you mind swapping with Matt's taller? That's perfect right there. I see. That's perfect. Yay. Good job. Thank you. Okay, we're all looking right here. So Sorry, thank you for your patience. One here, one, two, three. Let's do one more. 1, 2, 3. And do one more. It's a bit weird. It's a wide group. Hold on. There's only so much left. Here we go. Going right here one more time. 1, 2, 3. Excellent. Let me look at those real quick. Eyes. We're good. Thank you. Thank you.
I guess these look like a little antennae from behind the scenes.
Okay, and again, thanks to our firefighters for their support. We appreciate everything you guys do, and it's an honor for the council to be involved in that proclamation. Sudi, if you'd please call the next item.
Our next item is a proclamation regarding the FFA organization. I do have a public comment card regarding that from Ms. Laura Bentley.
Good evening, Laura Bentley, 2500 Bethany Church Road. I am excited. Thank you very much, Mayor, Councilmember Lusk, for this proclamation tonight, acknowledging these fine ladies of the Cambridge High School FFA. I have a very soft spot in my heart for them. I just wanted to highlight some of their accomplishments. This chapter in 3 short years has been named the National Model of Excellence for 2017. They've had 10, they've been named top 10 chapters in the nation. They've had 7 top 4 finishes in the state FFA events. One thing that might not be in this proclamation is their wonderful leader, Miss Sarah Nerswick. She's back in the audience. She spends countless hours away from her family working with these girls, going off to conventions. I recall distinctly the day that she was hired. I have never seen Ed Spurka so excited about an employee. So I share with you in your excitement. One of the things that I'm proudest of on my truck is my FFA magnet, and I encourage each of you to find out how to get one. It's a great part of our community. These girls are very aware of the importance of AG1, and I'm going to close with a part of their creed that they all know by heart. I've watched them in their meetings, and it's impressive. I believe that American agriculture can and will hold true to the best traditions of our national life, and that you can exert an influence in our home and community which will stand solid for your part in that inspiring task. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
And this evening, we have a proclamation recognizing Cambridge High School FFA organization. This is being presented by Councilmember Bill Lusk.
Thank you, Sudi, and thank you, Laura, for making that presentation. This group needs a lot of recognition for who they are and what they have been over the years. I was a member of 4-H when I was growing up on a dairy farm, and I never got to wear a blue corduroy jacket. Some of my cousins did, but you're certainly recognizable throughout the United States for what you've done and perpetuate the agricultural industry, and I commend you all for being a part of it. You wouldn't think it would be here in Milton, but we are diverse here, and we certainly enjoy having you as part of our community. And once again, I commend you for being a part of that great organization. And I'll read the proclamation, and afterwards, if you all would come up, we'll have a presentation and another photo op. So, it's a proclamation for Cambridge High School FFA organization. Whereas FFA used to stand for Future Farmers of America and is an intracurricular student organization for those interested in agriculture and leadership. The official name of the organization is the National FFA Organization and is not limited to students who want to be production farmers, but also welcomes members who aspire to careers as teachers, doctors, scientists, business owners, and more. And whereas this organization remains committed to the individual student, providing a path to achievement in premier leadership, personal growth, and career success through agricultural education. And whereas the National FFA organization is a national youth organization of 629,367 student members as part of 7,757 local FFA chapters in all 50 states. And whereas the Cambridge High School FFA chapter was started in 2015, over 130 FFA members participate throughout the state in career development events, leadership workshops, and conventions. Cambridge FFA members also manage the school's small animals through an animal mentoring program, host doggy daycare for Cambridge faculty, and foster cats through a local animal rescue. Who would have thought that? Whereas the Cambridge FFA Agricultural Communications team won the state FFA competition for the second year in a row. The competition was held on March 17th and 18th, 2017, at the University of Georgia in Athens, and under the direction of their coach and advisor, Sarah Nerswick. They have now earned the right to represent Georgia FFA at the national contest in Indianapolis on October 25th through the 28th of this year. And whereas during the competition held in March, sophomores Kaylee Doyle, Alia Garrett, and juniors Brittany Breedlove and Haley DeSandre competed in a four-part competition which included 2 Associated Press-style editing quizzes, a media plan, individual practicums, and a presentation. The students had to listen to a 20-minute-long press conference and then create either a press release, opinion paper, develop a website, or a promotional video. These scores, combined with those from the other 3 parts, helped them to secure their win by a margin of 40 points. And whereas 3 teams from Cambridge FFA organization will be competing at the National FFA Convention in October under the direction of Sarah Nerswick and Ashley White, FFA advisor. Brittany Breedlove, Haley DeSandre, Kaylee Doyle, and Alia Garrett will compete in agricultural communications career development. Maddie Feely and Allie Maloney will compete in Premier Chapter in strengthening agriculture. Megan Bybee and Allie Maloney will compete in Models of Excellence, and Grace Fabio was selected to be a part of the National FFA Chorus. Whereas we are proud of the Cambridge High School FFA organization and their contributions to our community. Now, therefore, we, the Mayor and City Council of the City of Milton, hereby dictate and proclaim Monday, October 16th as Cambridge High School FFA Organization Appreciation Day in the city of Milton, Georgia, given under our hand and seal of the city of Milton, Georgia, on this, the 16th day of October, 2017. Congratulations, ladies. And if we'd all go down, please.
If you ladies want to step up and we'll do a photo.
And anybody who wants to get up here can. Just be careful.
See a lot of proud parents out here.
Take a half step back. You're perfect right there, Councilman. There we go. Here. Okay, we're all looking right here. You'll get everybody around you in just a second. For right now, if you will, just focus right here. We're going 1, 2, 3. Let's go one more. 1, 2, 3. All right.
And I just want to say on behalf of the city, we're very proud of you, and I'm sure your parents are too, so we're proud of your girl.
It's driving, isn't it?
Yeah.
Kathy's going to take this, right?
Me.
You're going to take it? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, Sudie, if you'll please call our next presentation item.
Next item is presentation of the proposed Milton Trails Blueprint, presented by Mr. Carter Lucas.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Before I turn this over to Will, I just wanted to...
Can I break in? Excuse
Yes,
me.
sir.
Sudie, do we have any public comment on this?
We do not, sir.
Okay, all right, just make sure.
So back in August, we began this process of updating the Trails Master Plan that we had. One reason was to try and get really a more realistic plan that we could implement. We also had some funding sources that were available to us through the T-SPLOST and the Green Space Bond that we didn't have when the original trail plan was developed. And so since August, we've been going through some public meetings. We were out at the Crabapple Fest, and we wanted to bring forward to you an update of those meetings and where we are on this particular project. Will Herbig from Kimley Horn is here tonight to provide that update, and Charlene was here. Oh, and Charlene from Kimley Horn is also here. So if you have any questions, any of us would be glad to answer them. I also wanted to let you know that there are some maps on the back table that are available for anyone who would like to have a handout regarding some of the information that's going to be presented tonight. So with that, I will turn it over to Will to go through the rest of the program.
Thank you so much. And
So let's
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, thank you so much for this opportunity to share with you details of the Milton Trails Blueprint. My name is William Zay Hervig, and on behalf of my colleagues at Kimley Horn and Charlene Mingus, we're delighted to walk you through step-by-step kind of where we are and get some of your feedback. If you think about trails and you ask people their definition of trails, you'll get lots of different definitions. There's a lot of different trail types. There's lots of different trails that are out there, and they mean lots of different things to different folks. Trails have a power to connect with people of all ages. They can be hard concrete surfaces. They can be soft gravel. They can serve bikers, walkers, equestrian communities. They can be straight and run in front of homes. They can run along greenways. They can run through the woods. They can run along the road. Sometimes they're busy. Sometimes they're silent. Many times they're active. They're places to contemplate, alone or with your friend. It's what's underneath. Sometimes it's wood, sometimes it's soft. And it's a place to connect with your community, most importantly. The city of Milton has been thinking about trails for a long time, pretty much since the inception of the city. In 2007, the city had its first trail plan. It really built upon Milton's network of existing gravel roads and looked at how to use those and build a trail system. A few years later, Milton completed a comprehensive parks and recreation plan, and that updated the 2007 plan and looked beyond the city's right-of-way at other opportunities. A couple years later, there was a focus on regional connectivity, how to connect the Milton Trail Plan to regional trails, principally the Big Creek Greenway down the road in Alpharetta. And then most recently in 2016, just about a year and a half ago, the city undertook the Comprehensive Transportation Plan, or the Milton Comprehensive Plans, the CTP, and it considered bike and ped improvements as part of the overall transportation projects. And what was interesting in the CTP was the hunger or desire that was expressed by Milton citizens for trails. About 4% of Milton's population weighed in online expressing a desire for more bike connections, trails, and walking. 50% of who the city heard from said they use sidewalks, 42% use trails, and just 8% use bicycle facilities. Probably that number was relatively low because the city simply didn't have a large network or infrastructure to support bike. But 94% of the respondents said they'd be more likely to walk or bike more if improvements were made. It's a remarkable number, remarkably high. And out of the 8 transportation projects that they could prioritize, residents chose walking and biking, second only to vehicular travel. That rated higher than even repairing the streets and repairing the roads. And so 2 additional things happened since the CTP, and that was the Fulton County T-SPLOST was approved, and also the Green Space Fund, and that provides the opportunity for additional funding, which Carter just alluded to. And those can fund a lot of these big ideas, which the city didn't have the resources to do previously. And so that brings us to the Milton Trails Blueprint. How do we build upon everything that we're doing to advance the plan? There's been all this, almost a decade's worth of trail planning in the works. There's funding in place. And so now we're in a place to assist the city in helping them think through what are the good ideas, what do we prioritize, and where do we go first? And so we see the increased demand. We have the funding sources. Oh, and also the Green Space Committee is waiting for a plan so they can go out and begin some of their acquisitions to use some of the funding that's out there. And so when we set out working with staff, there were some guiding principles that were established. Number 1 was prioritize the routes. Where do these trails need to go? And we need to look at land that was owned by the city and look at other future aspirational partnership opportunities that may exist throughout the city. Second, how can we use the trail to connect city assets, the parks, our schools, our libraries, and other civic destinations? Third, building upon that idea in earlier plans of regional connectivity, Big Creek Greenway, Path 400, which will extend farther north, and other regional trail connections that are in the area. And finally, we were asked to help identify that home run project. Where does Milton start? Maybe 1.5 miles, maybe 2 miles. Relatively flat and possibly a loop trail. We set about with an ambitious project schedule. I'll just walk you through kind of where we've gone and where we're headed. We started this undertaking back in August. We've been meeting with staff at regular intervals through the process. We met with the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board for their input. We met with the Green Space Committee, and we met with the Equestrian Committee. We were out at Crabapple Festival. We got over 500 folks stop by our booth to look at the draft trail plan, weigh in, give us their feedback. We had a community meeting just last week here in this room. We had a great turnout and some really good discussion. And that brings us to tonight. With your input, we're hopeful that we'll move forward to bring this project to a conclusion sometime in November. So through those engagement processes at Crabapple and here at the community meeting, what did we hear? Principally, people want off-road greenways. Greenways being those off-road natural corridors. People want easy routes that connect the destinations. People want connections to the regional trails. They want safe routes and crossings for bikers, walkers, runners, and the equestrian community. So crossing busy roads like Freemanville and others, principally important. And people want any new investment in trails to not feel like anywhere else. They want these trails to be used to add a layer of placemaking to Milton that feels distinctively like their city. And so we investigated 3 trail types: greenways, those off-road connections, side paths, which run along the side of a road, and shared use equestrian trails. So let's take a look at each of the 3 so that we all understand kind of the definitions. So greenways, principally off-road, 12 to 14 feet. They're typically recreational, and they're not along the side of the road, and they're either paved or unpaved. In most cases, what we've been thinking about or hearing about is a paved trail. And you see some examples. You see the Alpharetta, the best example nearby is the Big Creek Greenway. And Gwinnett has an incredible network of trails. In fact, we brought the main trail planner from Gwinnett to speak at our community meeting last week to share some of the lessons of what they've experienced out there. That's what you see there with that beautiful bridge out in Gwinnett. Side paths are more than a sidewalk along the side of a road. They're much wider, and they can vary in design, but you often have a buffer that creates a separation between the active roadway and the walking, biking, or jogging path. Also around 12 to 14 feet, and you can see some examples of side paths in the images there. And finally, equestrian trails. And the opportunity here in Milton that we determined is principally using the shared use gravel roads and using those more effectively. And equestrian trails, these shared use gravel roads are trails built for or shared with the equestrian community, preferably unpaved, using natural materials. Now, you may have noticed at the bottom of all of these slides, I had a cost estimate on all these. They're principally running about $3 million a mile, give or take. And one of the important considerations is that in terms of the actual paving materials, we're probably of the trail itself, it's usually running about $400,000 to $450,000 a mile. A lot of your costs are all of the added details and details that contribute to a trail, including the trail amenities. These are just a couple of examples, but we heard that lighting was really important to this community, and not just regular lighting from a freeway or a street, but something that was distinctive and kind of built upon that Milton feel. So this is an example of a trailhead on a trail in a rural type or suburban community, much like Milton. Also at the trailheads and along the trail, signage and art is important, and here's just some examples from across the country and other parts of the world. I think the one on the far right is actually from Japan. And so this idea of kind of modern rustic seemed to resonate in some of the conversations, so some of these images people responded to. And in those cost considerations, other things to consider are those amenities that I mentioned, the gravel costs, the concrete costs, the signage along the trail, drainage, erosion, any type of tiebacks or walls that might be needed, traffic control, signalization across those busy roads. grading and lighting. Lighting is actually one of the higher items of consideration in terms of budgeting these projects. So in addition to looking at the trail types and looking at the costs, we looked at how to best serve and connect the populations within Milton. And so you see that the darker the color on this map is the deeper or the higher the concentration of residents. You can see that our largest concentration of residents in Milton actually live in the communities in and around Deerfield. Second, we get a little bit of density around Crabapple, and then as we move north up towards Birmingham Park, the city gets much less dense. We looked at the existing network of sidewalks and side paths throughout the city, and so you can begin to see a lot of the neighborhoods in the city, particularly the cul-de-sac subdivisions, have sidewalks existing. A couple places on this map you see where there are side paths along the larger roads. Those are showing up in those little sections of blue along a few of the roadways. And we looked at future considerations, those aspirational partnership properties located throughout the city. Those are golf courses, some of the churches that spoke to us while we were out there and having community meetings, and also the utility easements that are located throughout the city. And there was a lot of conversation about the utility easements, and I think it's important that the city staff thought through some of the language here in response to some of the public comments. So I will read this, that for sections of the Milton Trails or Greenway Plan that are outside of publicly owned spaces, parks, right-of-ways, and facilities, authorization must be obtained from property owners prior to any development of that trail section. And in terms of the easement, we did look at case studies and models from across the country. You can see some images of those. We talked with Georgia Power about any design and safety considerations if the city were to pursue it. Georgia Power was open. And we also heard from many residents about the private ownership. We also looked at the ownership of all the right-of-ways. It's important to note that beyond near the substations owned by Georgia Power, the majority of the easements are privately owned. And so any negotiations or discussion of utility easements requires discussion with the private owners themselves first, and then consideration of the design details, safety details, and requirements of Georgia Power. Okay? So I'll walk you through kind of how the draft trail network lays out. First, we looked at the gravel roads, the existing network of gravel roads throughout the city that might lend themselves best to a connected network of trails. You can see these showing up. Second, we looked at a network of side paths to link into those. Finally, adding in greenways, connecting a lot of the schools and civic assets. Those are showing up in green. We looked at those aspirational opportunities for greenways running through other parts of the city. These are locations that are not civic properties or right-of-way owned by the city. So those are why they're shown in dash lines, aspirational. And then aspirational regional connections, connections to Forsyth, Cherokee, Roswell, Alpharetta, and other parts of Fulton. And out of that entire network, we identified 3 golden opportunities, and those are highlighted in that gold, radiating gold color, and I'll walk you through each of those in a moment. But this overall network of trails that we're proposing is 32.8 miles of side path running alongside the road, 11.4 miles of greenways, off-road, and then 8.7 miles of shared equestrian trails, for a total trail network for Milton of 52.9 miles. Now, we know that the city can't accomplish that overnight. We know that the funding pools of the T-SPLOS and the Green Space Committee cannot accomplish that ambitious goal. But that is taking all of those former plans, aggregating them together, seeing what good ideas are still valid from a decade ago, and then narrowing it down to 3 priority trail options. The first one, down in the south, where we are here, the Crabapple Loop, 2 miles. Number 2 is the Central Milton Trails. That's using mostly the network of the shared use gravel roads through the center of the city. And then over on the east, the Deerfield Connectors is an opportunity to connect that population density of Deerfield to those educational campuses that are there, Cambridge, Cogborn, and Hopewell Middle, and others. So let's walk you through in detail each of these three golden opportunities so you understand a little bit more. Crabapple Loop here is a 2-mile trail loop. What is interesting here is that it's about half greenway, running off-road, running through Milton High School, and I can use the clicker here to kind of walk you through. I think you can all see the cursor. So we run the Greenway Trail through the school campuses. We build upon some of the network of trails that are already on the property, some of the cross-country trails, and we bring that on down to Mayfield Road. If we take Mayfield down to the west, then that gets us into the Crabapple Village and City Hall and the retail and all of the great development that's happening here. And if we go on out Mayfield, then we get to Freemanville, and we can create that and connect that loop. We have just a couple intersections that we would need to address, but it's a pretty simple, pretty easy 2-mile loop. The beautiful thing is that it provides an opportunity to double in size in a short amount of time, because with the growth, the addition of the shared park being built by Milton and Alpharetta out Mayfield Road, we have the opportunity to extend a side path out Mayfield that would also tie into Alpharetta's side path on the south side of the street. We can get into the park, and then there may be some opportunities to loop in through some partnership opportunities here sometime in the far future. The second golden opportunity is the Central Milton Trails. It's about a 5.5-mile network running from Birmingham Falls on the north down to Providence Park in the south, and centered on Summit Hill Elementary in the middle. Provides an opportunity for 3 trailheads. The city already owns some property here right at the intersection south of Birmingham Falls. And then the trail comes down Wood Road, hits the back end of the Fulton County Board of Education property, and then continues on down to Summit. We get an opportunity to create a nice greenway connecting into the school. This could be a second access point or a second trailhead. And then we come on down Brittle, and then down Providence Road, and then it gets us into the main entry into Providence Park. Over time, we have some opportunities to extend out with some greenways, with some partnership opportunities that we could look at all times, trying to look at how to create connections and knit these opportunities together over time. And finally, the third golden opportunity is the Deerfield Connector. As I mentioned earlier, this is an opportunity to connect the educational campuses that are out along Cogburn Road with the dense collection of neighborhoods that exist in the area. So this runs from Cambridge on the north, loops around, so that's Bethany Way there on the top. It comes down along Cogburn, hitting all of these campuses, and then it turns down Webb Road and connects into Deerfield Parkway. What's nice about this as we move south is we have this wonderful connection over to the Big Creek Greenway, which is just right there, and that has the potential to connect into over 15 miles of trails. The other opportunity is that we get to leverage the investment of GDOT, which is redesigning Highway 9 throughout the city. This is about a 1.8-mile section that runs here between Bethany and Webb. And so we have an opportunity to create a loop in a very short amount of time by leveraging that investment by GDOT along Highway 9. So it would close that loop. So those are the 3 golden opportunities, and I would love to take your questions and go into any additional details that you may have or want to know.
Open up for questions. Bill?
Yeah, great report. You sure have covered the gamut of different types of trails here. One that I'm concerned with is the unpaved roads. And I notice you have estimates of cost per mile, unit cost on these. And obviously, you're dealing with different materials, different access to right-of-ways, topography, and everything else that enters into it. But gravel roads, most of them are obviously the existing roads, and I think that's where your low-hanging fruit is. biker, walker, equestrian type use on it. But with an existing network of roads like that, do you think, what is your cost estimate, I guess? How does that differ from your greenways and your side paths and in some of your other schemes?
You know, they actually, while it is an existing road, there are each of the 3 priority trail options. They pretty much come out roughly the same because you have costs, and Crabapple Loop has higher amenity costs because you're dealing with more of a village-like character, and so you're going to have maybe higher lighting costs and a higher level of finish to kind of keep with the character of Crabapple. The rural nature of the Central Milton Trail system running along Wood and Red, while it won't have that higher level of finish, you have some other considerations that begin to make the costs go up a little bit. So when we were looking at and building upon a lot of Kimberly Horn's experience with other trails, at the end of the day, my cost per mile was about the same. Or they weren't necessarily the same, but by the time I brought in more signalization here or there, and it wasn't a huge difference. What I will tell you is that for the Central Milton Trails, which are those focused on the gravel roads, it was coming in, and this is very back of the envelope kind of stuff, is probably about $11 million. And that has a contingency in there, and that's, I'd rather estimate it a little high than low for you today. That was coming in at about 11. The Crabapple Loop at 2 miles was coming in around 5 to 6, and the Deerfield connectors came in around, I think, 10.
Are these your own estimates, or were you using data from other jurisdictions?
This was building upon a lot of our experience on trail planning for Gwinnett, also the Atlanta Beltline, and then some other just national best practices in terms of costs.
And to put it in perspective, when we bid out the trail section down Cogburn from St. Francis up to Webb Road, that was about $500,000 for an equivalent of 2,500, so a little bit less than half a mile of trail construction. There was no amenities associated with that, no right-of-way acquisition associated with that. That was purely trail and storm drainage, curb and gutter.
Just one last one. Since you and I have been talking about it over the years, Carter, there are some of the roads, unpaved roads out here that are actually prescriptive easements.
Correct.
They're not public, actually public right-of-ways. How does that enter into the equation when you're only dealing with a 30-foot right-of-way in most cases?
Well, I think it comes down to how we ultimately design the details into that. So from a use perspective, we typically have the use of that 30 feet, whether it's for vehicular or pedestrian use. When we start looking at the amenities, the signage, the rest stops, things like that, that may be outside of that prescriptive easement. We're probably back into negotiations with the property owners associated with each of those stops. So the details of the design are really probably going to ultimately drive the cost and the right-of-way acquisition that's going to be necessary for it.
For sure. Okay, thank you.
And Karen's next, but I did want to bring and reiterate, you brought up a point, and that kind of ties into that the city is interested in, or, not interested in, would like willing partners and property owners. So, again, if it's an easement or a public right-of-way versus a private one, the city's not interested, and I believe the council's all on board with that, they want willing neighbors. So we certainly would work to make sure that there's a buy-in, if that makes sense, as we move forward. But Karen?
I'd be a willing neighbor.
Go ahead, Karen.
I guess I'm still having trouble getting my mind around this cost estimates.
Okay.
I was treasurer of the Milton Cross Country Team when we put in 2.5 miles of trail over at the high school. Granted, we didn't have to buy any property. We did put in 3 bridges, got power, telephone poles donated for the base of the bridges. But we did between 2 and 2.5 miles of trail with triple ground mulch, which was one of the most expensive things, 3 bridges for $40,000. Mm-hmm. So I'm really having a hard time trying to understand how this is $2 or $3 million for trails. If you don't have a whole lot of land costs. Now, we didn't have any bathrooms there or anything because they had the school, and I understand all that can come in there, but Do we have any estimates of what just the actual trails would cost? And especially if the trails that aren't going to be asphalt or concrete, that are just gravel or something like that? Because that just seems to me, like I said, we did it for $40,000 between 2 and 2.5 miles. And, you know, you got a lot of kids out there running on it every single day, and they hold the county cross-country meets there and everything. And they do have to put down new mulch about every 2 to 3 years, which can be $2,000 or $3,000, but it's not 2 or 3 million.
Right. We'll have a couple of considerations that will be required to comply with that. I don't know that a cross-country trail would be. ADA accessibility is going to drive a lot of the materials that we use and are able to use. But those types of details will come out in the design. So as we begin to look at these specific sections and can look at specific materials, locations, right-of-way acquisition easements, we'll be able to drill in on those costs a little bit more than we have now. What we wanted to present tonight were just some generic costs that have been seen really throughout the country that may include a lot of elements that we don't necessarily have. So whether you have utilities, retaining walls, large right-of-way acquisitions, those types of things generally weigh into those overall cost estimates, but may not be necessarily something that we'll look at when we get into our detailed design.
And we didn't have any, like I said, land acquisition. We did have a couple of retaining walls. We used volunteer labor. So, you know, I know we did some things that the city would not necessarily do, but still, if we did, you know, between 2 and 2.5 miles of trail for $40,000, to me, $2 or $3 million just seems, per mile, seems way out there.
And it could be. All of these, our cost will be a little bit better defined as we get further into the design components of these.
Okay.
And I think to Councilmember Thurman's point, but also to Carter's too, if you look at some of these pictures, yeah, some of those could run on up there, but versus a trail through the woods that you can mulch and whatnot. So I'm sure it can balance out. And as I'm sure as we move forward, you guys can value engineer it. That'll be bid out on the marketplace, so hopefully we get the best value. So I guess we have the opportunity to weigh in there.
Correct.
Anybody else? Joe?
Yeah, so along the same line, I mean, I'm willing to consider this at a high level without worrying about the cost right now. However, did costs weigh into, or estimated costs weigh into, which trails you picked as your golden opportunities?
Yes, we tried to have choose routes that were not too extensive, knowing that we could not do, that the city didn't have the resources to implement the entire 57-mile network of trails. So what were reasonable opportunities to pursue that had existing right-of-way that the city could leverage, had other moving parts that they could leverage, such as the Highway 9 redesign, such as the shared park with the city of Alpharetta. So looking at those. And so that's how we narrowed down into these 3 different ones. And you can see that they're also at different distances. So how aggressive does the city want to be? Do they want the shorter 2-mile loop, tighter, connected to the village? Do they want something more extensive along leveraging those existing gravel roads? You know, the gravel roads are an interesting opportunity. They're out there. They're being used. They're beloved today. We heard it at Crabapple Festival. People love it. They told us they're walking it every day. There's a lot that's working. There's a lot that's not working. And so there are a lot of safety improvements that would need to be made to better codify that as a shared trail network and make it safer and more livable for those that are in the area.
Well, I think you made some good choices, so I'm excited to see what else we can find out about this. So.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody else? All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, we don't have any items tonight under first presentation, so we'll move to our public hearing. Sudi, if you'll please call the first item.
Our first item is consideration of the issuance of a limited alcohol beverage license to Whitetail Bicycles, Inc., 770 Mid-Broadwell Road, Milton, Georgia, 3004, agenda item number 17266. Ms. Bernadette Harville.
Do we have any public comment, Sudi?
We do not.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This evening I have before you the first of 3 alcohol beverage license applications. The first one is for Whitetail Bicycles right here on the corner in Crabapple. This is our first limited tap application. If you recall, this was one of the newer improvements that Sarah put forth a few months ago. This limited tap means they're allowed to purchase from breweries within a limited aerial, 50 aerial miles from their establishment. They have limited hours that can be open, shorter than most restaurants, and they also have a limited amount of ounces they can pour per day to each individual. The applicant has met all of our requirements, and we are recommending approval.
Okay. Are there any questions from council on this application? Bill?
Is there a food requirement?
No, sir. This is one of the ones we put forth that does not require the full kitchen or food. So the way we kind of made sure that it wouldn't turn into anything other than what was anticipated was by limiting those hours and how much could be served. So they can be open Monday through Saturday, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. 9 a.m. is kind of the standard for the other restaurants. And then Sunday, 12:30 to 9 p.m. So there's a 9 p.m. cutoff every day of the week. And they can only serve 48 ounces per individual per calendar day.
Anybody else?
48 ounces is a lot of wine. Hopefully they're not going out riding a bike after consuming 48 ounces of wine.
That's after they ride on the new trails we have. All right.
It's beer only.
Oh, beer only.
From a
Yeah,
tap
not
that was
48.
purchased within 50 aerial miles that was brewed there.
Still a lot of beer, 48
Okay.
ounces. But
Hey, Rick?
And this would be for consumption on premises,
Correct.
Only?
Yes, sir. They would be in the open container district, so they could take their cup into the open container district of
The
crab apple,
plastic.
but
Right, okay.
Okay. Well, I'll open up for a motion.
Mayor, I move that we approve the issuance of a limited alcohol beverage license to Whitetail Bicycles Incorporated, agenda item number 17-266.
Okay, do I have a second? I'll second it. If I need to. All right, have a motion from Councilmember Longoria. I second it. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That passes unanimous. Sudi? Okay. While you're still up, Bernadette, Sudi, if you'll please call the next item.
Next item is consideration of the issuance of an alcohol beverage license to Bobby G's LLC, doing business as Bobby G's Chicago Eatery, 12990 Highway 9 North, Suite 114, Milton, Georgia, 3004. Agenda item number 17267, Miss Bernadette Harville.
all right, number 2 of 3 this evening. Bobby G's is actually moving their location a couple doors down from their current location, and they will be adding distilled spirits as well. They are in compliance with all of our regulations, and staff recommends approval.
Go.
Yeah, I just want to sort of follow up on that last vote. If we've got issues with this, and I think we do if we can't get a second for a motion that gets made, and I'm not trying to say the motion was the right motion. That's not what I'm trying to say. What I am trying to say is that we should be debating that. So if somebody thinks that this is the wrong thing to do, I would think we would be talking about why it's not the right thing to do. Now, hopefully Bobby G's doesn't fall in the same category. So I don't have any problem with this, but I would encourage us to really talk about this, because if we're doing things that we don't think we should be, let's talk about it.
Well, I think for the most part, though, if they meet all of the qualifications, we really don't have a whole lot of choice, do we?
It is up to council's decision.
And I would just say, I did make this the second, which I have before. Ken, you're welcome to weigh in on procedure. Is that an issue?
Well, I was just thinking more of Councilmember Thurman's point. I mean, once you set up a regulatory review process, particularly within the context of permitting, and once they meet those objective criteria with respect to the permit, I do think that although the council does have to approve it, I think that they are entitled to their permit once they meet those criteria.
And I think to Joe's point, if anybody was not seconded because they had an issue, but I think the votes were unanimous on it. So if somebody did have an issue, I would think.
I just worry about things that require, not, Mayor, you have every right to second something, but historically you've only weighed in when we weren't moving forward. So I just want to make sure we're talking about everything.
All right. I'm going to assume everyone voted in favor. So if there's an issue, please feel free to discuss. Thank you, Joe. All right, Bernadette.
Did we get a vote on that?
Mayor, I'll make a motion that we approve agenda item number 17-267, consideration of the issuance of an alcohol beverage license to Bobby G's.
Second.
All right, I have a motion from Councilmember Thurman, second from Councilmember Longoria. Any discussion?
Let me do my Notre Dame hangout, man.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimous, too.
There you go.
So I think we've got 3 here. So, Sudi, if you'd please call the next item.
The next item is consideration of the issuance of an alcohol beverage license to Gutron Webb Road LLC, doing business as Blue River Tavern, 12990 Highway 9 North, Suite 102, Milton, Georgia, 3004. Agenda item number 17268. Ms. Bernadette Harville.
This evening, I'd like to present the last ABL before you, and Blue River Tavern will be moving into the current Bobby G's location, and they have met all the requirements as well, and staff recommends approval.
Okay. Any questions? I'll open up for a motion.
I'll make a motion, Mayor, that we approve agenda item number 17-268.
Second motion.
Okay. We have a motion from Councilmember Lorig, second from Councilmember Longoria. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimous. And I would just like to personally, and as well as I'm sure from the council, wish these businesses well. And we're glad you're here in Milton and here to support you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, Sudi, if you'll please call the next item.
The next item is a public hearing for the consideration of a resolution of the City of Milton, Georgia, extending until January 9th, 2018, an existing moratorium barring the acceptance of applications for concept plan approval and applications for issuance of land disturbance permits for residential development of property in the T6 transect zone within the Deerfield Form-Based Code District. Agenda item number 17269, Ms. Kathy Field.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. This is a public hearing on the moratorium to extend it till January 9th.
Okay. Do we have any public comment?
We do not, sir.
Okay, then I'll close the hearing. And then any discussion or Kathy, any questions?
Okay, I'll make a motion that we approve agenda item number 17-269.
Second.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I think that approval comes when it just when it gets to the next. They call
we
it
got to
out.
move to the next one.
Okay, so
Yeah, we closed the public hearing.
excuse me.
So we don't have any items on our zoning agenda, so we'll move to unfinished business. Sudi, will please call this item.
This item is the consideration of a resolution of the City of Milton, Georgia, extending until January 9th, 2018, an existing moratorium barring the acceptance of applications for concept plan approval and applications for issuance of land disturbance permits for residential development of property in the T6 transect zone within the Deerfield Form-Based Code District. Agenda item number 17269. The public hearing was held this evening, October 16th. Ms. Kathy Field.
Yes, and Mr. Mayor, the purpose for this moratorium extension till January 9th is to give staff enough time to consider changes to the zoning code to eliminate the residential zone from the T6 transect zone in the Deerfield Form-Based Code.
Okay. Any comments, Joe?
So, Kathy, are we aware of anybody who wants to do some type of development that would require this to be lifted? In other words, is this delaying anyone that we're aware of?
No, it is not, sir. We have had some interest, some tentative interest expressed in the past, but nothing is pending or has come forward formally. It's just been some interest.
Okay.
And just so you're aware, we did send out notices to everybody that owns property within that area.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, I will open for a motion then. Matt?
All right. Mayor, I'll make a motion that we approve agenda item number 17-269.
Second motion.
Okay, I have a motion from Councilmember Kuntz for approval with a second from Councilmember Lusk. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passed unanimous. Okay, we'll move on to new business. Sudi, if you'll please call the first item.
This item is consideration of a resolution of the City of Milton authorizing a pre-application for a Land and Water Conservation Fund grant with the Department of Natural Resources. Agenda item number 17270. Mr. Jim Craig.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Before you, we are requesting your support on a resolution which would be submitted as part of a package for a pre-application for a Land and Water Conservation Fund grant. This is offered through the Department of Natural Resources of the state of Georgia. The grant is a 50-50 match with a maximum of $100,000 granted and backed up by $100,000 in matching funds. The funds are currently available in the Providence Park line item for capital improvement, and we're targeting a project of building bathrooms at Providence Park, roughly closely to the current parking lot. We do know that Providence Park is going through a master plan process. We don't have the results of that master plan process yet. However, we have spoken with our consultants, and they have assured us this effort would be supplemental and by no means any form of going against what they're doing. The consultants are fully in support of what we're trying to do here. The timing of this project is we have to submit it by October 31st. We will find out sometime in March if our grant has been accepted. We'll find out in September 2018 if we have received the grant, and then from there we would have time to build it. So we're not concerned that this project will get in the way of what we're trying to do at Providence Park. Okay. So simply put, I'm asking for your support of the resolution, which is a requirement to submit the pre-application.
Okay. Rick?
And I know sounds like it's a long window before we actually find out if we get the funds, but the bathrooms there, is that going to be on septic? Will we have to put in septic field? Or is there sewer connection, sanitary sewer?
I do know that there is sewer in that area. Right now, we're proposing it as self-composting bathrooms to be more environmentally green.
Yep. Okay. Beth, Karen?
No, I'm not sure I really want a detailed explanation of what self-posting bathrooms means, but we will trust you.
Interesting.
You just flush. Don't worry about it. Hi, Joe.
So, are there any strings that come along with accepting these types of funds from the U.S. government? Something that would impact future use of the property, future requirements that we might have in doing certain things with the property, limitations on what gets done to the property, those kinds of things?
I have seen nothing in the application process to indicate so, and I have spoken with 2 different agencies that have received Land and Water Conservation Fund grants in the past, and they indicated they had nothing that impacted them.
Okay.
Just clarifying that, if we move forward with the resolution and you make the application, if something comes up, we don't have to, would we have to accept grant if it's approved?
If I believe I heard you correctly, the question is, would we have to accept it if we win it?
Correct.
I honestly don't know the answer to that. I don't think
I'd probably look at Ken, but
No,
if we found something in there.
Right.
Okay.
If we accept the money, we have the right to not accept it.
Right. Okay.
Hey, Rick? Yeah, I guess the same. That's my question is what Joe had brought up. As long as we've got the option, if we find out later they put strings that we're not comfortable with as far as restrictions, and we still have the option to back out. So we're not really locked in just by applying.
And if I may ask Ken, I believe part of the issue is that it is a matching grant. I guess if we decide we're not going to match it, then they wouldn't give us the grant. So
that's right.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Anybody want to make a motion?
Mayor, I'll make a motion that we approve agenda item number 17-270, consideration of a resolution of the City of Milton authorizing a pre-application for a Land and Water Conservation Fund grant.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion from Councilmember Thurman, second from Councilmember Morrig. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jim. Okay, we'll move on. Sudi, if you'll please send the next new business item.
Next item is consideration of 3 lease agreements related to the Mayfield Road property acquisition between the City of Milton and the City of Alpharetta for a future park space. Agenda item number 17271. Mr. Ken Gerard.
Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, good evening. This is going to be a tale of 3 property acquisitions. And as the city is very aware, we are doing a sort of a joint project with the City of Alpharetta with respect to a park. And I'm going to read out the addresses of this property because what I'm going to be asking of you this evening is for you to actually authorize 3 leases. So I want to be very clear. We have already approved the acquisition contracts with respect to these properties, but as you may also remember, for a variety of reasons, the individuals that live there now wanted 12 months to remain on the property after closing to get their affairs in order and otherwise get off the property. This is actually a fairly common accommodation when governments are trying to acquire property. It helps for a variety of reasons. So the 3 parcels are this: 1470 Mayfield Road. The sellers are Jerry Anderson and Linda Anderson. There's 1480 Mayfield Road. The sellers are Jerry Jefferson Anderson and Murdy Patricia Anderson Fuller. And then 1490 Mayfield Road, Creighton Fuller and Patricia Fuller. The acreage of 1470 Mayfield is 5.393 acres. 1480 Mayfield is 1.734 acres, and 1490 Mayfield is 5.383 acres. And as the council will remember, the collective amount for all 3 parcels was $1.5 million. That seemed consistent with what everybody remembers. What you have in front of you this evening are the 3 lease agreements. And by the way, just for purposes of a status, at this point, we're in our due diligence period with respect to the closing, and we have completed a level 1 environmental report, title report, and in fact, title insurance has already issued. So everything is good toward a closing, which we anticipate will occur by the end of this month. The 3 lease agreements are for 12 months. No additional consideration or monthly rent payments will be due by the tenants, which is what they will be converted into. Once we own the property, they will be converted into tenants. The tenants will pay all utilities and continue to maintain the property during the term. And the sales agreement and the lease agreements anticipate that the tenants may remove certain structures and fencing prior to expiration of the tenancy. You may remember this. We had actually gone over and looked at the property and felt comfortable that there were certain things that we would have no utility for and that they could take with them. Otherwise, these 3 lease agreements are very standard. If the council approves these, they are also going to be approved by the City of Alpharetta, and then at closing, we will have the sellers execute them, and therefore we will be in the landlord-tenant business for 12 months. Mr. Mayor, if the council is willing to approve these 3 residential lease agreements, which I do recommend, I would ask that each be called by a separate motion and vote for the 3 of them.
Is there any questions for Ken or concerns on this bill?
I think I asked the question before, Ken. Not sure it's relevant to this point here, but is the city going to cover property and liability insurance, PD and liability?
Let me take a look real quick and see. I thought you asked that the first time. I'm sure we covered that with respect to a tenant's policy of insurance. Right. So Section 9 of the contract provides that during the term of this lease, the tenant shall procure and maintain a policy or policies of property, casual, and general liability insurance, insuring the tenant and landlord as additional insured, which is, I think, what we had discussed in the direction I'd given to my staff.
Okay.
That's in paragraph 9A under the insurance indemnification section.
Okay. Any other questions or discussion?
So that property casualty, are they covering property damage? Suppose there's a total loss of the structures on the job. run the site.
Either us or Alpharetta is supposed to cover that piece of the insurance. I remember it.
Right. So,
It's not going to be in the lease.
right. Well, but in addition, though, the landlord, we are also going to have, because it's going to be our premises, so we'll also have dual insurance on there as well.
And typically, the owner would
Cover the
have a
insurance
policy,
for the structures that we own.
So we'll make sure that obviously, we know that the tenant's going to provide the other insurance, more for liability in there.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Anybody else? Rick?
And because it's going to be a joint agreement or it's going to be coterminous or whatever with Alpharetta, they're going to share in the cost of the insurance. It's not going to be Milton. It'll be split costs, just like the acquisition of the property.
Yeah, we've been splitting everything.
Good.
And that's going to be the continued basis of this relationship.
Okay, great.
Okay. And I believe you wanted to look at these as 3 separate motions, correct, on each lease?
I do, Mr. Mayor. I mean, we need a motion on 1470 Mayfield, 1480, and 1490.
Okay, I'll start out then with 1370 Mayfield. Do I have a motion for approval for this lease?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion for approval of 1370 Mayfield from Councilmember Longoria, second by Councilmember Moriggs.
It's
1470.
Sorry.
It's 1470.
1470. Okay, 1470 on that motion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. So I'll open up for another motion. What's the address on the next one?
1480 Mayfield.
Mayor,
$14.80.
I'll make a motion that we approve the lease agreement for 1480 Mayfield Road.
Okay, I have approval from Councilmember Thurman, second from Councilmember Kuntz on 1480 Mayfield Road. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous.
Mayor, I'll move to approve the lease agreement related to 1490 Mayfield Road.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion from Councilmember Loss, second from Councilmember Thurman for approval of 1490 Mayfield. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. Okay, thank you, Ken. Okay, we'll move on to reports. One thing I want to say, last weekend's Crabapple Fest was a success, and again, I tell people, to me, I think one of our the best accomplishments that we've all made is the sense of community and the pride that you see in our citizens and people when we have events. And it's obvious when you see them getting bigger and bigger every year, but I also want to thank the staff. We had several staff members that put a lot of work into it, and we just sincerely appreciate that. So, anybody else have anything they want to report on? Joe?
Yeah, I just had a couple of questions, maybe some action items, Steve, that you can take away from this meeting. We had a citizen get up a little bit earlier and talk about inappropriate use of personal information that the city gathers. And so, first of all, I wanted to ask a question, and that is, do we have a published privacy policy when it comes to information that citizens may share with us via email? So I know we have a certain obligation for information that's shared through forms related to permits and fees and things of that nature that we wouldn't give out necessarily. But email is a little bit different animal. And the reason it's a different animal is because it immediately becomes subject to Open Records Act and open record requests. So unless we automatically redact that kind of information. So I just want to get your opinion on that.
So when people sign up for our newsletters and things along those lines, their private emails are protected from release under open records.
They are?
They
Okay.
are. That was changed, I believe, in 2013.
2012.
2012.
Okay.
So anybody that signs up for any of our newsletters or the things, things we see coming out from Shannon, it's all protected. We can't share that information. What I believe you're discussing is a different situation where we're involved in a partnership with a nonprofit, and that it's not necessarily covered And it's something Ken and I have been talking about, obviously, since
Yeah, that was
the end of
going
last
to be
week.
my next question about that. But so we should probably take a look at those.
It's already
issues.
begun.
Okay.
We've spent a significant amount of time on how to make sure that people feel comfortable providing us their information.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I just, we don't have to go very far to understand how sensitive this kind of thing is, because Equifax, company just down the road, is all in the news about this kind of thing. And it's a difficult thing to manage. It's a difficult thing sometimes to understand unless abuse takes place, in which case it becomes really easy. So we just need to be careful along those lines. So I'm glad to hear that we're already working on that. Thank you.
But I guess to Joe's point, the city attorney and city manager are looking into that. Correct?
Yeah.
Action, okay, whatever we need to do to protect it. Okay. Anybody else have anything they want to report on? I'll open up to staff then. We have Kathy.
We continue to work on two initiatives. The first is the tree preservation ordinance. We've had many meetings with our stakeholder group, and on Wednesday night, we're going to hold a public meeting on the ordinance. And then from there, it will go on to the Planning Commission and at their October 25th meeting. And should they vote it out at that time, you will see it at the November work session for a presentation on it. Okay. We also continue to work on the Unified Development Code, the UDC, and our consultant continues to work on the diagnostic issues that were presented to you back in August. There are two text amendments that we are in the process of drafting. The first deals with the moratorium that you just passed tonight to allow us time to put together language to delete the residential use from the T6 in the Deerfield Form-Based Code. The second proposed text amendment that we're working on language to bring forward to you all relates to both the Crabapple Form-Based Code as well as the Deerfield in terms of the parking requirements. We're looking at adjusting those parking requirements, and we'll be bringing you more information as that develops. As you know, we now have a new process for reviewing preliminary plats. They will now go to the Planning Commission, and we have two that will come under that new Planning Commission review process at their October 25th meeting. The first is a plat on Holly Road at the corner of Arnold Mill Road, proposed 4 single-family lots on 36.9 acres. And the second is what I refer to as the Mayfield Lake parcel along Mayfield Road. There's a proposal to build 28 single-family residences and 41 townhomes on 16.9 acres. So that also will be going to the Planning Commission. There was a third one that has been deferred, and there's been some discussion on it, I know, and it's located at the southwest corner of Wood Road and Birmingham Highway to propose to build 15 single-family lots on 20 acres. And that will be deferred for a month, and will go to the November Planning Commission meeting. And that's my report.
Any questions, Karen?
Where do we stand with our large lot subdivision ordinance?
We are working on that. Carter and I have met with some developers to get input from them, and I believe we have another meeting set up for Friday afternoon so that we can bring something forward as expeditiously as we can.
Okay, and just so you know, I've also asked staff to look at maybe a process where people that want to combine lots to take smaller lots and make a larger lot to make that easier and more beneficial, and to incentivize people to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, anyone else? Rick?
Kathy, and I guess this would be to Steve possibly too, is there any way to easily give us a document for council to see kind of what's active as far as land disturbance permits, new construction or potential new construction, like for both commercial and then also on the residential side. Just an example is I've gotten some calls about up around the roundabout at Providence and Birmingham, and I just happened to drive through there and saw that, they had disturbed, they were grading things off. But is there a way that you could give us actively kind of a report so we're aware of what's going on in the city? Because a lot of these things they're within the zoning use, so we're not going to see them coming before us, but it would help, I think, us as council if we had an awareness of what you guys were approving. So if a call came, we'd already have seen something, said, oh yeah, we know what that is. This is what, I'm just looking for more of a way to inform council of what's going on in the city.
So what we're trying, and we've been working on now for quite some time, is an interactive GIS-based map. So those that would reach out to you could actually practice some self-help and click on it. Anytime you see any type of disturbance, you'd be able to just click on a map and get all the information. Carter, you know where we are with that process?
I do. So it has to do with our licensing and being able to distribute that on a public fashion. So that type of information is currently available on our internal network. It's just a matter of making that a publicly accessible type application. One of the concerns that we've had is the database with the parcels. We're currently going through an extensive project on updating all the parcels and making sure that they are accurate and correct. It's a little bit related to that to make sure that we put out the best information that we can, but that is something that we do have internal. We just need to work on making it externally accessible.
So we've got a spreadsheet that lists all the LDPs and all the ground disturbance permits and all that. Mm-hmm. I'm sure we could, in the short term, create something to give you more situational awareness regarding what those are. Ultimately, my vision for the original thing I was talking about is for people to be able to, anybody in the community to be able to click on a link and then be able to see everything. You'll be able to see all the different pages of the LDP, the tree saved page, the stormwater page, everything, so people could be able to see exactly what's going on. We're just having a little bit of a slowdown with that. But that's ultimately where we're going to be. Short term, we'll create something out of those spreadsheets so you have that information.
Yeah, and I don't know if the rest of the council is interested in that, but that would be, I guess, the things that fall under current zoning we're not going to hear about because they won't come before us for any hearing or anything. To me, it would just, from an awareness, before that actually start grading the dirt, it'd be nice to know, oh, we're going to be putting in a pet motel or something is going to be going there. So then if the calls ever come, we're just aware of what's going on in our district and across the city.
Additionally, we're moving to the electronic review system for our permits. Once we have that up and running, not only will you know what's going on, you'll actually be able to see, you and I discussed a project earlier today. You'll be able to see where we are in that project, what the inspections are, how the inspections are coming back, what holdups may be existing regarding the next stage in the process. So that's one of the real reasons we're excited about getting that online.
Great. Okay, thanks.
That makes sense. All right, thank you, Kathy. Chief Austin.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. Happy to report to you this evening that we're continuing to see a downward trend in both our accidents and our crime. We're down 6% with all accidents and 12% in our injury collisions. Year to date, our crimes are down 12% and down 11% in violent crimes, which we're still enjoying a 100% clearance rate on those. We're still continuing to be active out in the community. We just started another session of our Citizens Police Academy, and we have 19 citizens that will be spending the next several weeks with us learning the ins and outs of the police department. So we're happy to host that. And that's the major project that we have going on right now. Any questions?
Bill?
Chief, I've been talking to a lot of people here recently about roundabouts and dangerous intersections. Do we have any historic data that you could share as to how effective these roundabouts have become from an accident perspective?
I do know in a general sense that they have reduced collisions. I know we have a couple where we have some engineering concerns that we're looking at right now. I could pull some hard data for you on that, but in particular, the ones where we have collisions, we have officers out there that are doing some active enforcement and some education on those.
We'll pull the data on that. Let's pull 3 years of data on that and see if we see a reduction. But I could tell you, normally what you see with circles is you see the reduction in the broadside, the more serious accidents. When they're first introduced, you see an increase in low impact accidents. People failing to yield, things along those lines. You get the side swipes. I'm only telling you what you would normally see, what you should expect to see when we get this data back. But then, once people get used to the circle, the accidents should continue to reduce significantly. If they don't, that's when you have to start going back and seeing whether or not there's an engineering issue or some site issue or anything along those lines. I don't mean to be speaking on your behalf, but by and large, we're in. I don't, and based on my time in the police department, I think you're going to see that the roundabouts are not. It's not where we have our accidents.
Yeah, and that's just typical. Whenever we get any kind of traffic complaints, we do education enforcement. We take a look at the engineering and then present anything we find to Public Works. So just that in a general sense.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Chief, for all you do and your guys, and that's good. Good news. Trending well.
Thank you.
Okay. Any more staff reports?
That's it, Mayor.
If not, I'll open up for a motion to go into executive session to discuss land acquisition.
So moved.
Okay, a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That's unanimous. We'll be right back. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. That's unanimous, too.